On July 16, 1945 at 3:30 a.m., a series of AT-6A planes rumbled off the tarmac of Buckley Field, Colorado. Three of the planes were en route to Alamogordo Air Base in Mexico, with two junior pilots and pilot navigator Frank Marrakech Jr., whose name was altered to protect his identity in the book, The Trinity Flight. That night, clear skies were expected with an easy flight time of 2 hours. However, as they neared their destination, they encountered a massive thunderstorm, and static from that storm rendered their primary and backup navigational tools useless. Marrakech spotted a gap in what he thought was the Sacramento mountain range, and assumed they were approaching their airfield. As they passed over the mountain range at 5:30 a.m., an abrupt sequence of flashes, brighter than the sun, exploded outside their aircraft. The men covered their faces with their arms and ducked their heads, but even then, the intense light radiated through their bodies. Marrakech later recalled that every grain of aluminum was visible inside the plane, even when squinting, and that everything, from the mountains to the plane's interior, was shadowless during the light blast. Violent shaking of the aircraft ensued, causing the plane to climb 3,000 feet uncommanded, then plunge immediately after. In those moments, the pilots expected to die, but miraculously recovered control of the aircraft and arrived safely at their destination. However, they were not out of danger. Unbeknownst to them, the men had just directly flown over the Trinity site at the exact moment the world's first atomic bomb was detonated. They had just become the earliest recorded World War II atomic veterans, a distinction that would remain unrecognized by the U.S. government for 51 years. On August 6, 1945, 21 days after the first test of the atomic bomb, Little Boy was dropped on Hiroshima, Japan. Another, Fat Man, was dropped on Nagasaki 3 days later, resulting in the surrender of Japan and marking the end of World War II. The creation of nuclear weapons sparked an arms race and subsequent need to understand the effects of nuclear radiation on the environment, and more specifically, humans.
To fall behind any other nation in atomic progress is a national risk. To assure our defense, we have to keep our atomic strength at top level by testing new ideas and principles, and applying these principles in weapons.
Thus, the human radiation experiments were developed and conducted. While Marrakech and his crew's exposure was accidental, the human radiation experiments were intentionally inflicted on non-consenting members of the public, with a focus on vulnerable populations. 400,000 service members were exposed to the military's atmospheric and underwater nuclear testing from the 1940s to the 1960s. These tests primarily occurred at the Nevada test site and within the U.S. Marshall Islands. But while the locations differed, the accounts were similar.
I was wearing a t-shirt and dungaree pants, that's all.
In there, everything. Even the guy's bones in his back that was in front of you.
There was people screaming and running. There was panic.
Everybody started yelling and some people calling out for their mothers.
A few guys were having a little trouble. They were throwing up. It was a normal thing, I guess.
I saw officers saying the word, "Oh my God, what are we doing?"
These service members involuntarily became atomic veterans. They were continuously and recklessly exposed to radiation, nuclear fallout, and contaminated environments with minimal protection, completely ignorant of the potential health impacts. Contaminated water was used for bathing, drinking, washing clothing, and cooking. Decontamination and cleanup efforts were almost non-existent, as procedures typically only included brooming off fallout and waving a Geiger counter over the individual. Perhaps the greatest atrocity was the inability to speak of their experiences. They were sent to their destinations and made to sign NDAs, making them unable to discuss their experiences under the threat of fines, imprisonment, or being charged with treason. This climate of fear significantly hindered the veterans' ability to seek rights such as VA benefits, medical care, or being able to truly understand the significance of what they had undergone. As veterans were diagnosed with cancers and other health issues in the years post-service, they sought answers. The same conclusion was reached by many. Their exposure to nuclear testing was the cause.
More and more I heard about guys that had prostate cancer and lung cancer and all kinds of cancers.
However, when the veterans sought help from the Veterans Administration for their medical conditions, the VA denied most of their claims due to the Department of Defense's improper estimates of maximum radiation level exposures.
The Veterans Administration says the level of cancer among the veterans is not any higher than that for the general population.
Their voices began to grow louder and more confident, inspired by notable atomic veterans like A.C. Byrd and James Gate, who encouraged others to speak out.
We're more than just guinea pigs, we're also citizens. Even though we enter the military as at risk, we understand that, but we also expect a different standard because we are, in fact, American citizens. Thank you.
A pivotal moment came in September of 1980 when a 60 Minutes episode aired featuring the stories of Orville Kelly and Harry Coppola. The episode highlighted the experiences of atomic veterans, their health issues, the VA's lack of assistance, and Coppola's revelation that he was offered benefits if he agreed to stay silent on the issue. The story was broadcasted to millions across the United States, reaching countless previously unaware atomic veterans, including Frank Marrakech Jr. After the episode aired, the fight for rights, responsibility, and recognition gained significant traction. Among the organizations fighting for atomic veterans' rights and government responsibility were the National Association for Atomic Veterans, NAV, and the National Association of Radiation Survivors, NARS. NAV, founded by Orville Kelly in 1979, was dedicated to supporting and advocating for those affected by atomic testing. In 1980, Marrakech joined NAV as a Trinity coordinator, being one of the sole survivors from the Trinity site. Marrakech and his crew experienced a variety of medical issues in the years following their service, including rare cancers, heart disease, bone and blood diseases, and genetic damage. Marrakech's first and second wives suffered from numerous miscarriages, and ultimately, 3 of his 4 sons were born with birth defects. NARS filed a lawsuit against the U.S. government in 1983 on behalf of the atomic veterans who were denied the rights of VA benefits, with NAV filing a lawsuit in 1984 seeking greater compensation rights, retraction of NDAs, and official government responsibility. On July 16, 1985, 40 years to the day the first atomic bomb was tested at the Trinity site, Congress began hearing testimonies on Bill H.R. 1613, the Atomic Veterans Relief Act of 1985, directly from atomic veterans, including key voices such as Frank Marrakech. During his testimony at Capitol Hill, Marrakech stated, quote, "We've made claims to the VA, but those claims have been denied, not because we have no injury, but because we have no direct proof that these ailments were caused by our service to this country," unquote. He explained the long-term effects he had suffered and argued that denying compensation due to a lack of visible proof was unreasonable, as the damage was often invisible. He argued that the burden of proof should not be on the veteran. Marrakech highlighted that only 0.5% of atomic veteran claims have been covered, while the life expectancy of an atomic veteran is a short 52 years versus the average age of 74 for their civilian counterparts. Further complicating the service connection to radiation was the 1973 fire at the St. Louis Military Records Center, which destroyed 75 to 80% of service records. After many crucial developments, including evidence that the VA destroyed documents relating to the case and relied on methodology that ignored 98% of the radiation measurements taken from veterans, the judge ruled in favor of NARS. In 1988, Congress passed the first bill of compensation, which provided disability and medical benefits, as well as removing any existing time limits for filing claims. In 1990, President George H.W. Bush signed in the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, RECA, which provided lump sums of $75,000 to qualifying participants of nuclear testing. Later, President Clinton formed an advisory committee on human radiation experiments in 1994, tasked with investigating the government's role in radiation experiments on service members and civilians. The committee concluded, quote, "Government officials and investigators are blameworthy for not having had policies and practices in place to protect the rights and interests of human subjects who are used in research, from which the subjects could not possibly derive direct medical benefit," unquote. This conclusion helped lead to the creation of formal laws on experimental consent and a formal apology from President Clinton.
The United States of America offers a sincere apology to those of our citizens who were subjected to these experiments, to their families, and to their communities. When the government does wrong, we have a moral responsibility to admit it.
In 1996, the Nuclear Radiation and Secrecy Agreements Act was repealed, officially allowing atomic veterans to openly speak of their experiences. Marrakech passed away in the summer of 1993 at the age of 69, before he could see the full impact of his 13 years of advocacy for atomic veterans. Yet, the fight for rights continues as the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act expired on June 10th of 2024. The battle for extended compensation continued with Congress throughout 2024, but it has since lapsed. No compensation is currently available despite advocacy groups like NAV continuing to push for reinstatement of the original Act's protections. It took over 50 years to obtain official recognition of government responsibility for its role in the exposure of nuclear radiation on an estimated 400,000 service members, and to provide them and their families with the necessary rights of compensation and benefits. Yet, to this day, there are approximately 300 surviving atomic veterans and their family members who are left without the necessary benefits of RECA. The unwavering determination of atomic veterans and their advocates serves as a powerful reminder that safeguarding their rights and holding the government responsible is not just a moral obligation, but the cornerstone of justice and humanity, ensuring future generations honor their sacrifices made in the pursuit of freedom, truth, and accountability.